The stars looked different from this side of the galaxy. Captain Lisa Morgan stood at the viewport of the exploration vessel Pathfinder *, her eyes fixed on the alien solar system they approached. Humanity's first faster-than-light ship had performed flawlessly during the 3-week journey, carrying them farther from Earth than any human had ever traveled. "Entering orbit in 5 minutes, Captain," said Lieutenant Paul West from the navigation console. Lisa nodded. "Alert the diplomatic team. This is what we've trained for." The bridge crew worked with focused efficiency. They had been selected from the best Earth had to offer. Scientists, military personnel, and diplomats united in humanity's first official contact mission. After decades of sending signals into space, aliens had finally answered. The Galactic Confederation, they called themselves, had invited Earth to join the interstellar community. "All systems nominal," reported Chief Engineer Maria Summers. "First contact protocols ready to execute." Jack Porter, the military observer, stood silently in the corner of the bridge. His presence had been controversial. Some argued that bringing military personnel sent the wrong message to peaceful aliens. But Jack's orders were clear. Observe and assess potential threats. Nothing more. The Pathfinder * entered orbit around a gleaming blue-green world that served as one of the Confederation's diplomatic hubs. Small craft immediately approached, escorting the human vessel to a designated docking area. "They're hailing us," Communications Officer Ryan Kelly announced. "Translators are online and functioning." Lisa straightened her uniform. On screen, the view screen activated to show a being with silvery skin and large dark eyes. Its head was elongated, with no visible ears and 4 nostril slits where a human nose would be. "Greetings, representatives of Earth," the alien said, its words processed through the translation system. "I am Council Representative Zix Tor. Welcome to Harmonious Exchange Station. We are most curious to meet your kind in person." 6 hours later, Lisa led her team through the alien station's wide corridors. The artificial gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, making their steps bouncy and awkward. Around them moved dozens of different alien species, some with multiple limbs, others floating in personal atmosphere bubbles, and a few that seemed to be living crystals. "They're all so different," whispered Dr. Ben Harris, the team's xenobiologist. Indeed, no 2 species looked alike. Some were clearly plant-like, others resembled insects or reptiles, and many defied any Earth-based classification. Humans, with their bilateral symmetry and upright posture, attracted curious stares. The diplomatic reception took place in a massive chamber with a transparent ceiling showing the stars. Alien representatives formed small groups, conversing through translator devices similar to the ones the humans wore. Zix Tor approached Lisa's team with several other aliens. "Allow me to introduce the Classification Committee. They will help determine your species designation within our community." A tall, thin alien with leaf-like skin stepped forward. "We have reviewed your biological data. Most fascinating. You appear to be descended from. What was your planet's classification?" "Ah, yes, primates. Primarily fruit-consuming ancestors, yes." Lisa nodded. "That's correct, though humans are omnivores. We eat both plant and animal matter." "Curious," said another alien with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around its head. "Yet you lack natural weapons. No claws, minimal dentition for predation, relatively fragile exoskeletons. I mean skin." Jack Porter frowned slightly but remained silent. "We have provisionally classified humanity as a Class 3 non-predatory species," announced Zix Tor with what seemed like a benevolent smile. "You will receive appropriate protections and accommodations." Later, as the humans gathered in their private quarters, Jack finally spoke up. "Did anyone else notice something strange about the predator species they introduced us to? The one with the impressive fangs and claws." Lisa looked up. "What about it?" "I studied its movements. It was slow, methodical. It mentioned evolving on a high-gravity world, but I bet good money that even with those natural weapons, the average human could outrun, outfight, and outlast it. Ben Harris nodded slowly. I noticed that too. They've classified us based on our physical appearance, not our capabilities or evolutionary history. Should we correct them? Asked Maria. Lisa thought for a moment, then shook her head. Not yet. Let's learn more first. Sometimes there's an advantage to being underestimated. Jack smiled for the first time since leaving Earth. In that case, we might just be the most dangerous species in this room, and nobody has noticed. 6 months passed since first contact. The human embassy on the Confederation capital world was a modest building compared to the grand structures of older member species. Inside her office, Ambassador Diane Foster read through the latest classification report with growing frustration. Class 3 status again, she muttered, setting down the tablet. Non-predatory species requiring protection. Her assistant, Sam Nelson, poured her a cup of coffee. That's the third appeal they've rejected. Diane sipped the coffee. The beans were imported from Earth at great expense, as the Confederation had nothing similar. Most alien species found the smell unpleasant and the taste horrifying. They still think we're glorified monkeys, Diane said. Did you see where they put us in the official species guide? Between the Florax, who photosynthesize and can't move from their growth spots, and the meek, who literally evolved to be livestock for another species. Sam looked out the window at the busy alien city. Maybe Dr. Murphy has made progress with the Science Council. As if on cue, Dr. Alan Murphy entered the office. The xenobiologist's tired face told the story before he spoke. No luck? Diane asked. Alan collapsed into a chair. The Science Council refused to change our classification again. I showed them everything. Our evolutionary history, our hunting techniques, even basic human physical capabilities. They dismissed it all. What reason did they give this time? Sam asked. The same as before. They classify species based on physical attributes, not behavioral traits. Since we lack claws, fangs, venom, or other natural weapons, we can't be classified as predators. Ellen ran a hand through his hair. One of them actually patted me on the head, said my primitive anxiety was normal for species new to the galactic community. Diane walked to the window, watching the various alien species move through the plaza below. Most had evolved from prey animals on their homeworlds. Even the few predator species had highly specialized hunting adaptations rather than the generalist approach that humans had developed. They don't understand persistence hunting, Alan continued. They don't grasp how tool use can replace natural weapons, and they certainly don't understand human endurance. The Vrek, their top predator species, can sprint faster than us, but would collapse after half a mile. Sam brought up a holographic display of the Confederation species chart. Have you noticed something else odd? None of these species come from worlds with Earth's gravity or day-night cycle. Their home environments are all more stable than ours. Diane turned from the window. What are you suggesting? Earth is a death world by their standards, Sam explained. Extreme temperature variations, high gravity, constant natural disasters, intense competition between species. We evolved in conditions that would kill most of these aliens. Alan leaned forward. He's right. The Confederation evolved in comparative paradise. They never needed to develop our kind of adaptability. The door chimed, and Jack Porter entered. The military observer had stayed on as security liaison to the embassy. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but I thought you should see this. He placed a small device on the table. It projected an image of human children playing in a park. This footage went viral on the Confederation networks yesterday, Jack explained. It shows kids playing tag, climbing trees, and having a water balloon fight. The aliens think it's a documentary about primitive human training rituals. Diane watched the children running, jumping, and wrestling. Through alien eyes, she suddenly saw how their natural movements might appear alarming. What do they think of adult sports? Sam asked. They believe our sports are ritualized combat that prevents us from actually killing each other, Jack replied. Their anthropologists think it's how we channel our herbivore energy. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Should we keep trying to correct them? Alan finally asked. Diane thought for a long moment, then shook her head. No, let's accept the classification for now. There's an advantage to being underestimated. Besides, Jack added with a small smile, their misunderstanding gives us time to learn more about them while they learn very little about us. Alan looked concerned. Are we being paranoid? The Confederation has been peaceful for millennia. Probably, Diane admitted. But 5,000 years of human history has taught us one thing. It's better to be prepared and not need it than to need it and not be prepared. Outside, the alien sun set on the Confederation capital, its light reflecting off buildings designed by species who had never known true predators, until now. 2 years after first contact, humans had spread throughout Confederation space. They worked as traders, tourists, and cultural attaches. The aliens still viewed them as harmless curiosities, and humans did nothing to change this perception. Greg Patterson walked through the busy market on Centauri Station. The former Marine now worked as security for the human diplomatic corps. Today he wasn't on duty, but old habits died hard. He carefully observed each alien he passed, noting their movements and physical traits. Greg stopped at a drink stand run by a Melosian, a sixth-land species with blue skin. Water, please, he said to the vendor. The Melosian's translator squawked. Very hot today for soft species. You need cooling salts. No thanks, Greg replied. Plain water is fine. The vendor looked surprised but served the drink. Greg paid and continued through the market, recording observations on his wrist device. This was his 14th station visit this month. Later that day, Greg entered a secure room in the human quarter. Inside, Karen Miller, an intelligence analyst from Earth, was reviewing data on a large screen. How was the market? She asked without looking up. Greg sat down and transferred the data from his wrist device. Interesting. The Melosians can't handle temperatures above 85 degrees without cooling salts. And I watched a Vrex, supposedly their top predator species, struggle to lift a crate that couldn't have weighed more than 50 pounds. Karen added the information to her database. That matches what we've seen elsewhere. Most Confederation species have evolved in very specific environmental niches. They're specialized, not generalists like us. The screen displayed a chart comparing physical capabilities across species. Humans didn't top any single category, but they ranked surprisingly high in almost all of them. No other species showed such consistent performance across different metrics. What about the Dulari? Greg asked, pointing to a species on the chart. Better eyesight than us, Karen explained. They can see in ultraviolet, but they're nearly blind in low light and can only stay active for about 4 hours before needing rest. Greg nodded, and the Thessalian strength everyone talks about. Very impressive, Karen agreed. They can lift 3 times what a human can, but they overheat after 2 minutes of exertion and need 6 hours to recover. She pulled up a new document on the screen. It was titled Defensive Capabilities Assessment. The classified report detailed how humans would defend themselves against each Confederation species if ever necessary. Have you finished the report? Greg asked. Almost. The conclusions are pretty clear. Most Confederation species evolved from prey animals. They developed technology to compensate for physical limitations, not to enhance natural abilities like we did. Greg looked thoughtful. So they think we're weak because we don't have claws or armor, but they don't understand what we do have. Exactly, Karen said. They don't get persistence hunting. The concept of chasing prey until it collapses from exhaustion is alien to them. Their predator species are all ambush hunters or specialized for short chases. She brought up another file showing human physical training. Look at this. Confederation scientists think our exercise routines are religious rituals. They can't comprehend why we would deliberately stress our bodies. Greg laughed. If they saw our military training, They'd think we were insane." Karen's expression grew serious. "The few predator species in the Confederation are specialized hunters, not generalists like us. We're not the strongest, fastest, or most deadly in any one category. But we're the only ones who rank high in all categories," Greg finished. "The jack of all trades, master of none. But still better than a master of one," Karen added with a small smile. Greg stood up and stretched. His movement was smooth and efficient, the product of millions of years of evolution on a harsh planet. "Earth Command wants the final report by next week," Karen said. "They're still debating whether to reveal our true capabilities to the Confederation." Greg shook his head. "I hope they decide to wait. The longer the aliens think we're harmless herbivores, the more time we have to understand them." Outside the window, stars glittered in the vast darkness. Somewhere out there, humanity's reputation as gentle newcomers was spreading through the galaxy. No one suspected that these seemingly fragile beings from Earth were actually apex predators hiding in plain sight. Red emergency lights flashed throughout Proxima Station. Alarms blared as smoke filled the corridors of the Joint Human-Alien Research Facility. A massive power surge had damaged the life support systems, and toxic coolant was leaking into the air supply. Station Commander Peter Hayes coughed as he made his way to the control center. The smoke burned his eyes, but he pushed forward. 5 years since first contact, and this was the first major crisis at a mixed-species facility. "Status report," Peter called as he entered the command center. The room was filled with smoke and panicking alien staff. "Main life support is offline," reported Linda Chen, his human second in command. "Backup systems are failing. We have maybe 20 minutes before toxin levels become lethal to most species." Peter looked at the station schematic. 300 people were on board, 50 humans, and 250 aliens from 12 different species. The escape pods could only be reached through corridors now filled with toxic smoke. "Begin evacuation," Peter ordered. "Priority to species most vulnerable to the toxins." The Melosians were already collapsing. Their respiratory systems were the most sensitive to the coolant chemicals. Peter watched as 2 human engineers tried to help a group of Melosians, but the aliens were too weak to walk. "They'll never make it to the pods," Linda said. Peter made a quick decision. "Get oxygen masks for our people. We'll carry them." The human staff grabbed emergency breathing equipment. It wasn't perfect protection, but it would help. Peter strapped on a mask and lifted 2 unconscious Melosians, one over each shoulder. They weighed nearly 200 pounds each, but Peter knew he could manage. 2 kilometers to the escape pods," Linda reminded him. Peter nodded. "Let's move." What followed would later be described in Confederation records as the Proxima incident. Human crew members carried alien colleagues through smoke-filled corridors. Some carried 1 alien. Others managed 2 or 3. The toxic atmosphere burned their skin and seeped past their makeshift protection, but they kept going. Peter led the way, carrying his heavy burden. His lungs burned and his muscles screamed, but he didn't stop. 2 kilometers through toxic smoke, uphill in the station's emergency reduced gravity setting. No other Confederation species could have done it. Dr. Susan Clark, the station's medical director, had been injured when a panel exploded. Her arm was badly burned, but she still helped coordinate the evacuation, treating aliens with one hand while giving orders with the other. "The Thalarians need to go next," she called to Peter as he returned for another group. "Their lung tissue is starting to break down." Peter nodded, his face streaked with sweat and soot. "How are you holding up, Doc?" Susan winced as she bandaged a Thalarian child. "I'll live. Go." Peter made 3 more trips, each time carrying multiple aliens. Other humans did the same. By the time the last escape pod launched, every human on the station was suffering from chemical burns and smoke inhalation. But all 300 station inhabitants survived. On the rescue ship, alien medical staff treated the injured. A Dulari doctor examined Peter with a scanner, her large eyes wide with disbelief. "You carried 3 Melosians through toxic smoke for 2 kilometers," she asked. "That should be physically impossible. Your muscle tissue shows extreme stress patterns, and your lungs have significant chemical damage." Peter shrugged, then winced at the pain. Had to be done. Across the medical bay, other aliens were running similar scans on the human crew, all showing the same confusion. "Your species endured conditions that would kill most Confederation members instantly," the doctor continued. "How is this possible?" "Just doing our job," Peter replied. Later, Susan found Peter in the observation lounge. They watched as repair ships surrounded the damaged station. "They're talking about us," Susan said quietly. "I overheard the Confederation medical director. They're calling it a statistical anomaly, or a primitive adrenaline response." Peter smiled tiredly. "Let them think what they want." "One of them isn't buying it," Susan added. "A scientist named Dr. K'tal has requested permission to study human physiology in detail. Says there's something about us the Confederation has missed." Peter watched the stars outside the window. "Should we be concerned?" Susan shook her head. "Probably not. Even if he figures it out, who would believe that the gentle humans are actually the most dangerous species in the Confederation?" The emergency lights of the rescue ship reflected in Peter's eyes, giving them a predatory gleam. Who indeed? The outpost on Vega Minor was one of the Confederation's most remote research stations. Located on the edge of known space, it housed scientists studying unusual radiation patterns. By pure chance, human big game hunter Frank Miller was visiting. The Confederation had recently allowed humans to hunt non-sentient animals on certain planets under strict supervision. Frank had come to observe the local wildlife before applying for a hunting permit. He found the 6-legged herbivores interesting, but hardly challenging compared to Earth's predators. He sat in the outpost's small canteen with his guide, a Thalarian named Zurich. The alien was explaining local hunting regulations when the alarm sounded. "What's that?" Frank asked, setting down his coffee. Zurich's translator crackled. "Proximity alert. Something has entered our security perimeter." The outpost's commander, a tall Dulari, rushed into the room. "We have detected Vrex ships approaching. All non-essential personnel must evacuate immediately." Frank looked confused. "Vrex? I thought they were Confederation members." "Different Vrex," Zurich explained quickly. "These are from outside Confederation space. They raid outposts for technology and food. They consider some species, including Thalarians, a delicacy." The commander was organizing evacuation procedures when the lights flickered and died. Emergency systems came on, bathing everything in red light. "They've disabled our main power," the commander announced, "and our communications." Outside, they heard the sound of ships landing. The outpost housed 30 scientists and 5 security officers, all armed with standard energy weapons. Against a Vrex raiding party, they stood little chance. Frank watched as panic spread through the room. These aliens had lived in peace for so long they had forgotten how to fight. Even their security officers looked uncertain. "How many entrances to this building?" Frank asked the commander. 3. "Why?" Frank had spent 20 years hunting dangerous game on Earth. He had tracked lions in Africa, bears in Alaska, and tigers in the remaining Asian wilderness areas. He knew predatory behavior. "They'll try to herd you," he said. "Block the main exits and drive you toward a killing zone." The Dulari commander stared at him. "How would you know this?" Frank didn't explain that humans had used the same tactics for thousands of years. "Trust me, we need to secure those entrances and find weapons. Our weapons are locked in the security office," the commander said. "And the Vrex can disable energy weapons remotely." Frank smiled. "Then we need to make our own." What followed was a crash course in human improvisation. Frank gathered tools from the maintenance bay and kitchen utensils from the canteen. He broke apart furniture for wooden stakes and metal pipes. He created traps using cleaning chemicals and medical supplies. "These won't kill them," Frank explained as he handed out makeshift weapons, "but they'll slow them down." Remember, we don't need to win. We just need to survive until help arrives. The first Vrex broke through the west entrance an hour later. They were large reptilian creatures with natural armor and multiple rows of teeth. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dim emergency lighting. The outpost staff retreated as planned, leading the Vrex into prepared areas. Frank had positioned himself near a maintenance shaft, armed with nothing but a makeshift spear and knowledge of predator behavior. As the first Vrex passed beneath him, Frank dropped from the ceiling. His spear found the weak spot between armor plates that he had identified from studying Vrex biology in the station database. The creature fell with a howl. For the next 72 hours, Frank led the defense of the outpost. He never slept. He barely ate. He taught the aliens persistence hunting techniques, not engaging directly, but harassing the Vrex continuously, denying them rest, wearing them down. Humans hunt by exhaustion, he explained to a group of scientists hiding in the laboratory. We're not the strongest or fastest, but we never stop. By the third day, the remaining Vrex were growing desperate. Their ambush tactics had failed against Frank's continuous harassment. They couldn't rest because he kept moving, attacking, then disappearing. When Confederation reinforcements finally arrived, they found a remarkable scene. The outpost was damaged but secure. 28 of the 30 aliens had survived. And standing guard at the main entrance was Frank Miller, bloody and exhausted but still alert. The Confederation security officer who led the rescue team found Frank sitting on the body of a Vrex warrior, cleaning his makeshift spear. "You're just one human," the officer said in disbelief. "How did you defeat a Vrex hunting pack?" Frank looked up with tired eyes. "I'm just a hunter. And sometimes the prey becomes the hunter." News of the human hunter spread across Confederation space. Most dismissed it as exaggeration or propaganda. But in quiet conversations, some aliens began to wonder about their gentle human allies. The grand meeting hall of the Confederation Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from all 27 member species had gathered for an emergency session. On the massive view screen, images showed the destruction of an outer rim monitoring station. It was the third such attack in 2 months. Ambassador Diane Foster sat quietly in the human section, observing the proceedings. After 5 years in Confederation space, humanity had been granted observer status, but not full membership. The aliens still considered humans too primitive and fragile for major responsibilities. "The evidence is clear," announced first speaker Zix Tor. "The Krellax Empire has awakened from its long dormancy. Their ships have been detected moving into Confederation territory." Murmurs of fear spread through the hall. The Krellax were not a myth but a historical threat, a powerful species that had retreated to their home systems centuries ago after a treaty with the young Confederation. "The treaty has held for 900 years. A Dulari representative protested. "Why would they break it now?" "Because they sense weakness," said a gravelly voice from the back of the hall. All eyes turned to Dr. Catal, the Confederation scientist who had been studying humans since the Proxima incident. His interest in Earth's primitive species had made him something of an outcast. "The Krellax were always predators," Catal continued. "They retreat when challenged and advance when they detect weakness. Our long peace has left us vulnerable." The first speaker looked troubled. "What defense options do we have?" The Confederation's military commander, a Vrex named General Kor, stepped forward. "Our defense fleet consists of 50 ships. We estimate the Krellax have deployed 200. Can we build more quickly?" Another representative asked. "Our shipyards could produce perhaps 5 new vessels in the next 6 months, General Kor replied. Diane listened to this exchange with growing concern. She caught the eye of Commander Nickel Reeves, the human military attaché seated beside her. Nickel raised her hand. "If I may speak." The first speaker nodded reluctantly. Humans rarely spoke at council meetings. "Earth has been developing defensive capabilities," Nickel said. "We could offer assistance." A ripple of surprised murmurs passed through the hall. General Kor's translator conveyed his dismissive tone. With respect, Commander, your species has been in space for barely 7 years. What could you possibly offer against the Krellax? We've been building ships, Nickel replied simply, combining human design principles with Confederation technology. This caused an uproar. The Confederation strictly regulated technology sharing, but Diane knew that humanity had been careful to follow the letter of the law while aggressively developing their own adaptations. How many ships? Asked the first speaker. 30 combat-ready vessels, with 20 more nearly complete, Nickel answered. The hall fell silent. How had the primitive humans built so many ships so quickly? General Kor regained his composure. Even so, you remain a Class 3 non-predatory species. Your ships may be numerous, but without combat experience or natural aggression. What good are they? Diane stood. We respect the Confederation's classification system, but perhaps in this emergency, an exception could be made. Before any could respond, the hall's emergency alert sounded. The main screen shifted to show a fleet of black ships entering the system. The Krellax had arrived sooner than expected. They've disabled our outer defenses, reported a panicked technician. Our fleet cannot assemble in time. The first speaker turned to the human delegation. It seems we have no choice. Commander Reeves, can your ships respond immediately? Nickel nodded. Admiral Brad Collins commands our defense fleet. He can be here in 20 minutes. A single human fleet commander, General Kor scoffed, against Krellax war leaders. Nickel met his gaze steadily. You may be surprised what humans are capable of. As the council watched in shock, Nickel contacted the human fleet. Within minutes, signals showed 30 human vessels moving at high speed toward the system. They're so fast, whispered a Thalarian representative. Diane felt a mix of pride and concern. For years, humanity had hidden its true nature from the Confederation. The illusion was about to be shattered. On the tactical display, the human ships formed a pattern that would have been instantly recognizable to any Earth military historian. A classic pincer movement developed by predator species over thousands of years of warfare. What are they doing? Asked General Kor, watching the unusual formation. Dr. Kittal studied the display with fascination. I believe, General, we are about to learn something very important about our human friends. Admiral Brad Collins stood on the bridge of the Earth ship Defender watching the tactical display. The Krellax fleet moved in a rigid formation, powerful but predictable. They had not faced a real enemy in centuries. All ships in position, reported his second-in-command, Captain Alice Ward, ready to execute Maneuver Wolfpack. Brad nodded. The name was fitting. Human ships were about to hunt like wolves. Begin the attack, he ordered, and jam their communications. On the Confederation Council view screen, the assembled aliens watched in stunned silence as the human fleet split into smaller groups. They moved with coordination that seemed impossible without central control. They've lost communication with each other, General Kor said in confusion. The Krellax are jamming all signals. Dr. Kittal leaned forward. Yet they still move as one. How? Nickel Reeves allowed herself a small smile. Pre-planned contingencies. Each ship knows what to do if communications fail. The human ships executed a complex dance around the larger Krellax vessels. They never attacked head-on, always from angles that minimized return fire. When a Krellax ship turned to engage one group, another would strike its exposed flank. They move like predators, whispered a Malosian representative. On the Defender Rad directed his fleet with calm efficiency. Groups 3 and 4 pressed the attack on their right flank. Groups 1 and 2 prepare to strike their center when they react. The Krellax fleet commander, unused to such tactics, made exactly the mistake Brad anticipated. He shifted his center ships to reinforce the right flank, leaving a gap in his formation. Strike now, Brad ordered. Human ships poured through the gap, attacking the Krellax from within their own formation. The battle quickly turned from an organized engagement to chaos, and chaos favored the humans. "The Krellax fleet is breaking apart," Captain Ward reported. "Their formation is collapsing." In the council chamber, the aliens watched with growing amazement as the supposedly primitive humans systematically dismantled a superior force. "Impossible," muttered General Kor. "Their ships are smaller, less heavily armed. But they fight like hunters," Dr. Kittel said. "Look at the pattern. They isolated the weaker ships first, then focused combined fire on each stronger vessel in turn. Just as pack predators separate weak prey from the herd." A Krellax battleship broke through the human lines and headed toward the Confederation defense station. 3 human ships immediately peeled off to intercept it. "They won't reach it in time," General Kor said grimly. They watched as the battleship launched boarding craft toward the station. The human ships could not stop them. "The station is lost," a council member said. "It only has minimal security." To everyone's surprise, Nickel Reeves remained calm. "We have a contingency for this too." Inside the station, the first Krellax boarding party blasted through the airlock. They were massive creatures with natural armor and built-in weapons, evolved predators who expected to find terrified prey. Instead, they found 20 human Marines waiting in ambush. The Marines were led by Major Steve Bennett, a veteran of Earth's Special Forces. When the call had come for volunteers to protect Confederation space, he had been among the first to sign up. "Remember your training," he told his team as the airlock exploded inward. "They're bigger, but we're smarter." The Krellax stormed in, firing energy weapons. They expected the defenders to fall back. Instead, the humans charged forward. The alien boarders hesitated, confused by prey that attacked rather than fled. That moment of hesitation cost them dearly. In the close quarters of the station corridors, the battle became hand-to-hand. The Krellax discovered too late that the soft-skinned humans were far stronger than they appeared, and unlike Confederation species, humans knew how to fight. On the Council view screen, security cameras showed the battle. The aliens watched in shock as humans fought with a ferocity no herbivore should possess. They did not flee from pain. They did not surrender when injured. They protected each other with coordination that spoke of deep instinctual pack behavior. "They're not prey animals," Dr. Kittel said softly. "They never were." The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, the Krellax fleet was in retreat, leaving behind damaged ships and defeated boarding parties. In the aftermath, a captured Krellax commander was brought before Admiral Collins. The aliens studied the human with newfound respect. "You fight like true predators," the Krellax said through a translator. "How did the Confederation tame such perfect killers as yourselves?" Brad smiled slightly. "They didn't tame us. They just never realized what we are." 1 year after the battle with the Krellax, the Confederation had changed. Human ships now patrolled the borders of Confederation space. Human security teams trained alien forces. The species once dismissed as weak herbivores had become the guardians of the galaxy. In the Grand Hall of the Confederation Council, Ambassador Diane Foster stood before the assembled representatives. Today was a historic moment. The official reclassification of humanity in the Confederation records. "We call to order this special session," announced First Speaker Zix Tor. "Today we address the formal status of humanity within our community." Dr. Kittel approached the central podium. Over the past year, his research on humans had gone from a fringe interest to the most read scientific work in Confederation history. "Distinguished representatives," Kittel began, "I present my completed findings on human physiology and evolutionary history. The data is clear and undeniable." On the massive view screen, images appeared showing human hunting techniques from throughout Earth's history. Stone spears, bows and arrows, complex traps. Then came footage of persistence hunting, where humans chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Humans are not herbivores, nor are they specialized predators like the Vrex or Krellax, Kittel explained. They are persistence predators, a concept previously unknown in Confederation space. The room was silent as Ketal continued his presentation. Their planet, Earth, is what we would classify as a death world. Extreme temperature variations, high gravity, constant natural disasters, diverse predator species. Humans evolved not by developing specialized weapons like claws or fangs, but by becoming the most adaptable predators in their environment. Ketal displayed a chart comparing human capabilities to other species. Humans rank above average in nearly every physical capacity. While they don't dominate any single category, no other species matches their all-around capabilities. They can run for days, survive extreme temperatures, heal from injuries that would kill most species, and use their intelligence to turn any object into a weapon. The first speaker looked troubled. Why did they not correct our classification? Diane stepped forward. We meant no deception. First speaker. At first, we were simply learning about the Confederation. Later, when we understood the misclassification, Earth leadership decided that correcting it might cause unnecessary fear. General Kor, who had fought alongside humans against the Krellax, nodded in grudging respect. A sound tactical decision. Being underestimated is a powerful advantage. What should concern us most, Ketal continued, is not their physical capabilities, but their psychological ones. Humans are pack hunters who form deep bonds with their group, yet can quickly identify threats outside that group. They can switch from peaceful cooperation to coordinated violence with remarkable speed. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some representatives looked afraid, others fascinated. And yet, Ketal added, they channel these instincts through complex moral codes. They are predators who choose not to prey on sentient beings. This self-restraint is perhaps their most remarkable feature. The first speaker called for order. Based on Dr. Ketal's findings, the Classification Committee recommends creating an entirely new category for humans. They would be the only Class 5 species, designated Guardian Predator. The vote was unanimous. Humanity's true nature was finally recognized. Later, Lisa Morgan, now Admiral of the 1st Multispecies Defense Fleet, stood in the observation deck of her flagship. Beside her was Jack Porter, the military observer who had first noticed the Confederation's misunderstanding of humans. Did you ever imagine it would end like this? Lisa asked. Humans becoming the protectors of a civilization that thought we were harmless. Jack smiled. Maybe it's fitting. Earth predators often protect their territory and their packs. We've just expanded our definition of what's worth protecting. Below them, in the ship's training center, human instructors were teaching alien crews. Some lessons focused on technology, others on tactics, but the most important lessons were about predator psychology, how to think like the apex hunter humanity had always been. In a classroom on the Confederation capital world, a young alien raised a hand. The class was visiting the human training facility, watching in awe as ordinary human recruits demonstrated their capabilities. Teacher, the child asked, were humans always this powerful? The teacher, who had lived through the Krellax War, looked thoughtfully at the humans. Yes, she answered. But they were so quiet about it that nobody noticed until we needed them. And across the galaxy, potential enemies of the Confederation reconsidered their plans. The rumors spread quickly. The peaceful Confederation was now protected by a species so dangerous that even the Krellax feared them. A species that had somehow become the galaxy's apex predator without anyone noticing, until it was too late to challenge them.